Hey, it's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. I come from CBS Radio. My shows are nationally syndicated, and I've helped pave the way to treating women, guys, to the dignity that they deserve. And I do that through my show, People of Distinction. Well, I have people from all over the country, parts of the world, who come on my show, and they talk it up about how their professional achievements have helped to elevate our human family. And I'm also in alliance with so many other wonderful people around the country, business leaders, professional leaders, and also publicists, book publishers, agents. And we do a wonderful, wonderful job with interviewing a lot of their clientele on People of Distinction. Today we have a gentleman who came from Parchment Global Publishing, and they are one of the foremost publishers in the country and around the world. They are cutting edge, I'll tell you, and especially with people who are just starting out with their books. Get in touch with Parchment Global Publishing at parchmentglobalpublishing.com, and you're going to be satisfied with everything that they do for you. The gentleman in question right now, I'll tell you, he's a universal guy. He's calling all the way from Bangladesh. Hey, we love that because we're all universal. We are part of a human family, and this gentleman's name is Ziaul Haque. All right. Now, I might be mispronouncing it, but as Shakespeare said, well, what's in a name? A name by any other name would sound just as sweet. And we're talking really about the human spirit right now. That is really the underlying sweetness to our human family. Now, this guy is really something. He has developed his own new literary form, and it's called Poe Story. Yeah. Now, some people might say, oh, Edgar Allan Poe. Yes, and the stories that he wrote. Wow, I'm a fan of Edgar Allan Poe. Well, I'm a fan of Poe as well, but that's not exactly what we're talking about here with Mr. Haque. We're talking about poetry and story merged together as a new reflective sort of way of talking about it. Talking about what? Well, we're going to find out what Mr. Haque, Ziaul, talks about in his Poe Story format. And if it really catches on with you, the listeners, maybe you're going to write in Poe Story as well. This guy is very, very explorative. And I want you to run to Amazon and order his books as well. They're under, I'll spell it out for you right now in case you don't know how to spell out Bangladeshi names. It's Ziaul. Yeah, that's the first name. And that probably is enough to get you into his book site. The last name is Haque. And I want you to order his books because this guy is really something, very intelligent man. So welcome to People of Distinction with Al Cole. Ziaul, how are you today?
Oh, yes, I'm great. Thank you so much.
Okay, I want to find out, my listeners want to find out more about Poe Story, this new literary form that you created. And first, define what it is, describe what it is, and tell us why you created it.
Well, as I am a creative person, from that perspective, I created this literary genre. It is a genre of writing in literature that is created by me, especially by blending two words, poetry plus story. In a word, it is a type of writing where a story has both the qualities of poetry and prose. This piece of writing, it starts with a poem and then ends with a prose, and vice versa. Well, on the other hand, it also has another definition, that is, it also refers to a poem that tells a story. In other words, it is a poem where a story is told in a poetic way. I hope you understand.
I do understand. So for my listeners, we're talking about basically a novel, because they would understand that word, a piece of fiction that maybe has characters and character development, and at the same time, it's put in poetic verse in many cases, especially at the beginning, as you said. And how does this make the novel, the storyline, more effective when you use poetry, Ziaul, with all of this? Tell us the efficiency of all of this with the new literary style of poetry and story.
Well, it's entirely new. Yes, like you said, it's original, and the blending will be understood in a proper way by the readers once they, collect the book and go it through.
Mm-hmm.
Poetry, in fact, the poetic part, that is the poem at the beginning, and the prose that the book ends with. Both are mingled together. A story is told, but in two formats in the same book. The first part may be, the poem part. It starts the story.
Yeah.
And the story ends with the prose.
Yes, we get it. And, as a writer, I understand what you're talking about with getting to the heart and soul of things. There's nothing like poetry that really kind of dissects what one wants to talk about in ways that it opens up universal thought. Sometimes poetry is hard to understand, but if we don't try to understand it so much and just listen to the beauty of the flow of the words, our heart, our soul understands it. And usually poetry is communicating in the same way that music does, through some sort of universal energy out there. It could even be the words of the gods, to put it that way. And
Indeed.
And all we have to do is just listen to the beauty of the words. Words themselves can form meaning without actually our even understanding some of the words. There are some poetry that I've heard in different languages. I don't even understand the language, but the beauty of the rhythm, the beauty of the form, and the beauty of maybe the way it's expressed, the way it's narrated at any particular point, it gets right through to the heart and soul. You're talking a little bit about that, kind of the intuition of words, rather than all the time the actual literary meaning of words with poetry. Is that right?
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
I hold the same opinion, yes. Like you said, poetry is something universal, and once it touches the heart, it gets immortality, as it happens with William Shakespeare's sonnets.
Yeah.
And, Rabindranath Tagore's poems, the Nobel laureate, Rabindranath Tagore from India.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
You're right. Give us a little bit of maybe a storyline that you've used in one of your books to illustrate maybe some of the relationships that you talk about in your book. Is it love relationships, romantic relationships, men-women relationships? Are you talking about nature, our relationship to nature? Give us an idea of maybe one of your storylines from your book.
A storyline that I can talk about is, like few days back, I published a story which is, in fact, in Bangla, and the storyline is, it reflects. It is all about the language, the Bangla language. Bangla is an international, has got an international status, and especially 21st February is known as the International Mother Language Day, and it is celebrated all around the world, focusing our very own native Bangla language. So the story goes on like this. One day, someone, is walking along the road, and suddenly some hijackers, they just stop him. They just stop him, and they kind of, they are prepared to hijack something. Now the person who is already, dumbfounded and terrified, he just asks, "What do you want from me?" And the hijackers, they just reply by saying, "Hello."
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. They just reply by saying that we want your language, and he just gets thunderstruck, like, what are you saying? How can you just take my language away?
Mm-hmm.
You can take everything that I own, I have right now, but how can I give my language to you? This is my existence, and this is like my blood that runs through the veins, all through my body. So it's kind of symbolic, and the hijackers, they just represent those people who ever try to suppress, oppress the innocent ones all over the world. And so even there were some states, some nations,
Mm-hmm.
who tried to suppress or dominate the innocent people by, what should I say, by making them use their language. It's like the murder or the slaughtering of language.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what, I want to say, and this is how the storyline goes on.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And we're getting it on People of Distinction with Al Cole and our special guest, who is calling all the way from Bangladesh today, Ziaul Haque, and he's gotten some great reviews here on Amazon with his book. And, there's another book that you've written that I think my listeners are going to be particularly intrigued by, and it's called Batman. Now, we understand that Batman has become a huge character within the lexicon of TV and movies and, wow,
Mm-hmm.
Our human lexicon of different sorts of cartoon characters out there, and it's come to life within the media as well. Why did you write the book Batman? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, this book focuses entirely the children, the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I just love them, and I thought, I should give it a go. I should contribute to this field as well. The children's book. So I wrote a few and published, some. So this is one of them, Batman. It's a book of rhyme, as you can see on Amazon, and it's really fun, and there are colorful sketches, images there, so that the children can love the
Yep.
love the rhymes more.
Yeah. Boy, I'll tell you, what a great concept there with Batman. Batman coming from Bangladesh this time. Hey, only on People of Distinction with Al Cole. Wonderful interview here, and let's cap it off right now with some possibility thinking. I like to end all of my interviews with possibility thinking, where we encapsulate not only the information that has been imported within the interview, but also the inspiration, the spirit of the interview. And I'm going to put it this way to you. If your poetry plus story, new literary form, really catches on, and, so many people are writing in that form, just like, back in Shakespeare's time, they were writing in, some sort of, whatever, I can't even remember the term right now, iambic pentameter or something like that, whatever it is.
Iambic pentameter, right.
Look at that. See, this guy's sharp, people. He knows his literary forms. If your poetry and story catches on as a new form, how is that going to revolutionize literature, do you think?
Well, something new always, revolutionizes. It sets the writer apart.
Mm-hmm.
It also sets, what should I say, the universal literature apart. What I want to say is that, whenever something new and original comes to to the people, then we always we become enthralled by it. We would like to follow it, and this is how newness enters the world.
Mm-hmm.
If a writer or if a poet, creates or originates something new, then another writer or another bunch of writers, they just get tremendously, incredibly inspired, and they also kind of try to create something new. Okay. They think that that writer or that poet has created something new. So we think we should also try and do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how newness goes on. The process of newness goes on, and at the same time, if there is something new, it always touches hearts. It kind of becomes a signature.
That's
and
right.
Automatically it should become a part of universality.
Mm-hmm.
As we see in case of William Shakespeare, the works that he created, his quotations and all, amazing. He died in 1616, but
yeah,
still he is revered all over the world. His dramas, his tragedies especially, are staged, and then his quotations, we use every day.
Mm-hmm.
As you already used one. What's in a name?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, Rose by Any Other Name. And see, Shakespeare is a great example of that. Shakespeare lives through our lives, people, and I'm going to close out the show with a reflection of my own to underscore what our guest was talking about in such great ways. Go to his website. Go to Amazon.com. You can order Batman. That's the thing that we were just talking about, his book Batman, and his name is Ziaul Haque. He's calling all the way from Bangladesh. Now, let me make my final reflection here to cap off the show with possibility thinking. People, do you realize that our human family race has been going on now for, some people say 200,000 years, some people say 1 million years. I could even say 1.5 million years. I could say more than that. And see, the heart and soul is what makes our human family. The love aspects that we bring into our everyday lives. And it is a family, starting out with that mommy and daddy and then the children. We're all children. We're all babies who come out and say, wow, I'm here. I made it. I'm alive. How can I contribute to life? How can I make a life for me and the ones that I love? Understand that. That is just the modus operandi of our human family society. And it always evolves. Maybe 2,000 years ago, the Romans were writing certain things and they were inventing certain gods that maybe actually exist. Whoa, and even before that, the Greeks and Mesopotamia, before that, and the Egyptians, and they all had their writing style. And then throughout the Middle Ages, and then in more enlightened times, after Shakespeare, then the French came in and, some of their impressionistic ways of putting words together. And then after that, the Americans, chipped in with more of the working class stuff, and Whitman, and then Poe with his great stories. And it lives on. Literature keeps evolving and evolving. And at a certain point, it's going to evolve where everybody who has that book within is going to write that book and put it on the outside. And we can all read each other's books. It doesn't have to be an elitist thing after a while. After a while, it's just the human heart, the human soul, talking to us through words. So why not through poetry and story combined? Yeah, people, let me cap it off with this. You have a story within you that wants to come out. Let it come out in any way that you think. You don't have to be perfect about it, because sometimes the imperfect is what we really love. Again, that baby that comes out that used to be you and says, wow, I'm here. Teach me about life. That little innocent baby needs your love and needs your caring and your everything you can do to nurture that person. And so words are the same way. They come out the way that our heart and soul wants them to come out, and they don't have to be perfect. They can touch somebody else's heart and soul. So don't be afraid to invite words to your lexicon. Create books around that. Get your books on Amazon. And particularly get your books with Parchment Global Publishing. Yes, and that's what it's all about here on People of Distinction. Parchment Global Publishing, that's your publishing company. You want to get involved. Go to parchmentglobalpublishing.com. Thank you so much, Ziaul, for being my guest here today on People of Distinction. And one more time, order Batman and all of his poetry and story developments at Amazon.com. Thank you so much for being my guest on People of Distinction today with Al Cole.
Thank you so much, and I am really humbled and honored. Thank you so much. It was really amazing. I mean, in one word, I just can't express my expression now. You are an amazing person, amazing host, and I'm really fortunate enough to have talked to you. Thank you so much.
Hey, it's syndicated radio talk.